Hi guys, in this video I'm gonna tell you the 10 things I do love about the Z6 and why it's still the best full-frame mirrorless camera to get in 2020. Let's start. And if it's your first time on my channel, my name is Michael Thomas. I'm a London-based skyline architecture and time-lapse photographer. And on my channel you see gear reviews as well as recommendations for the equipment that I use, as well as videos about where to find the best view in London, as well as when I travel, and that doesn't happen lately too often. Kind of the same thing, I go and try to explore and find the best views in these cities or destinations that I'm at. And while we're here in London, I'm going to show you a few sites in this video, as well as tell you why in 2020 the Z6 is still the beast of a full-frame mirrorless camera to get. But for full disclosure, it has to be mentioned that I do own two Z6 cameras. I find them absolutely brilliant, but this video isn't sponsored by Nikon. In fact, I have worked with Nikon on a few projects before. I've been invited to some product launches that they did, as well as this Z6 and Z7 camera. However, this isn't a sponsored video. I own two Z6s. They are my preferred cameras of choice. However, Nikon does offer me a small discount when I purchase equipment through them, and because they are the cameras of my personal choice, this is literally just an icing on the cake that the Z6 actually is. And without further ado, let's get on with the 10 things. I've divided them into 3 categories. 1 to 3 is going to be general, 4 to 6 will be video related, and 7 to 10 specifically time-lapse related, because that's kind of what I do. Let's group point number 1 into really how the camera feels, how it's like to own this camera. Well, the body is incredibly similar to any kind of a DSLR body. You really feel the quality, how the body is well made. The buttons layout, you just get used to these things. Weather sealing and just overall quality of EVF, the monitor is actually superior than other mirrorless cameras. Hence, this is just a perfect body. I did own some DSLRs and mirrorless cameras before going full on with two Z6s, and this feels literally like a DSLR, just slightly smaller, but some DSLRs were too big that I had. So this really feels like the perfect size, and it's just so well made. While some other mirrorless cameras that I've tried before, full frame or crop or 2x crop, didn't have the same sort of a professional body feel like the Z6 has. So it definitely is beyond any other mirrorless cameras that I had a chance to try. Point number 2, battery. This battery is absolutely incredible. It lasts literally hours. I was shooting time lapses, video, raw video on a single battery, and I was shooting for at least a few hours, 3-4 hours. But I also recently acquired the battery pack where I got 2 of these batteries, and I can actually hot swap them so the juice never runs out from powering the camera. They charge fast, they're not the cheapest, and I haven't tried any third party, but the original ones are absolutely amazing. Point number 3, it's an odd one actually, because it's about lenses. Lenses for the full frame Z system. They are absolutely incredible. Yes, they are a bit pricier compared to their equivalents in the F mount, as well as they're roughly in the medium range comparing them to their equivalents for other brands, but they score way above the price point for that focal length or for that f-stop that they offer. I'm shooting currently on the 20mm f1.8. This is the 50mm f1.8. It's an expensive 50mm 1.8, considering it's about £500, but the performance of this lens actually gets it closer on the MTF charts to some of the more expensive £1,000, £2,000 mark 50mm lenses, and it's only 500. I also have the 14 to 30 f4, which I absolutely love, such a versatile lens, and I recently reviewed the NOCT 58mm 0.95. That if you want to watch that video now, I would rather want you to stay and watch the video to the end, but here's the card to watch that video. Point number 4, and that's low light performance. Obviously in photos it's okay, but it's in video where this camera really shines. It's got 24 megapixels and they're quite big actually, so it performs really well. I'm currently shooting at 16,000 ISO. My face is being tracked, so the camera doesn't struggle in low light with face tracking, but it really performs well in either 4K, full frame, or the DX mode, or the slow motion. Really up to 25,000 does well. but I was shooting sometimes at 51,000, even pushed it to 102,000, and it was still somewhat usable, where previously on some other cameras you would never dream of going past 3,200. So this is one of the huge reasons why I love shooting video on the Z6. Point number 5, it's a big one. This camera can actually shoot 4K, ProRes 10-bit, as well as ProRes RAW, which is insane. It doesn't do that in body, like some rumors of new cameras that might do that now, but it does it externally to a Ninja V recorder. And the quality, especially of the 10-bit ProRes I've shot a few projects with, as well as with the ProRes RAW, is phenomenal. Like, you're getting a camera that shoots ProRes RAW 4K in full frame and DX mode between 24 and 30 frames a second, and the quality is unbelievable. I shot a few projects. Here's a few links, and also there will be a couple of links to some of the projects that I shot in RAW in the description of this video. Like, have a look at that. For the price of the Z6, you're getting a camera that can shoot ProRes RAW, but you also have to buy the Ninja V recorder, as well as upgrade the camera for about, I think, £200. But you're getting a camera that shoots RAW video for this price range. That is unbelievable, even in 2020. Point number 6, face tracking. Reliable face tracking in video. I do occasional vlog, I sometimes talk to the camera, and it's not always that I want to set everything manually. Well, I see on the U-Rig 45-degree monitor being tracked at 20,000 ISO, and it's completely not struggling with it at all. I can constantly see the square on my face as I move. It keeps holding me. When I vlog from my hand, it just works in daytime or at nighttime. So that's something that you really need if you're going to be using a full frame camera for your vlogging, for your adventures, for your studio talking, that you don't always have to shoot manually. Face tracking, 20,000 ISO, and it works on a 20mm f1.8 lens, and it's nighttime. I'm not using any external lights apart from these lamps. It just works. So yeah, definitely an amazing point to have on a camera. And we now reach point number 7, and from point number 7 to point 10 we're going to be talking exclusively about the time-lapse features of the Z6. So let's start with point 7. It is the 4K in-body time-lapse mode that saves a 4K file, and you can actually do it in full frame, FX or DX mode, and it will still get you a 4K file. It's absolutely amazing. You can do it in 24, 25 or 30 frames a second, and you just take the card out and you got the time-lapse that you created that can be up to 3 minutes long, and it's just amazing. No raw processing. The quality is still better than actually quality of video, at least in my opinion. Obviously it's not as amazing as raw quality, but for certain projects it allowed me to actually apply for them and say, I will deliver these time lapses in this quality, not raw quality, but this really good quality, professional looking time lapses, same day or the next day. And otherwise, if I was shooting raw, I would never be able to do that. And this just compiles these photos into a video frame by frame and saves it as a 4K file, which is amazing. I use it so many times where I don't feel I need to shoot it in raw. I will need the highlight or shadow recovery. I just use the in-body 4K time-lapse. I've got them on stock sites. They are accepted as good enough quality, and yeah, what else can I say? I absolutely love this feature. There are 3 more points, but this is, for me personally, the strongest feature out of these 10 points. Point number 8, you know the auto ISO settings on a camera. On a Z6 you can actually set it to first ramp the shutter up to 30 seconds before it starts to ramp ISO. I know it might be a weird thing, but actually there are professional bodies now, professional cameras by some other brands, that only allow up to 1 second before it starts raising the ISOs. They just don't do more than 1 second. So having ability to go up to 30 seconds if you want to before it raises the ISO is crucial for time lapses. Point number 9, lens profiles applied in body to the file. And let me explain you why actually you would benefit from that in a time lapse. When you're shooting an automatic time-lapse or even a manual time-lapse and you're ramping aperture, the vignetting would change between, for example, f4, 3.5, 3.2, 2.8. And if you have a wide lens like a 1.8, by the time you get from 2.8, 2.5 to 2 to 1.8, if the body wasn't applying the profile to vignetting, distortion and everything to the file, you would have actually slightly different vignetting that in a time lapse it's really difficult to just smooth out. Like your overall exposure can look smooth, a time lapse will get rid of all the flickering, but when it comes to vignetting, I find it a little bit annoying. So when the camera applies the profile and tries to get rid of the vignetting, distortion, really for you before you even start editing the time-lapse, that makes the whole process a lot smoother. And that especially comes useful when you're shooting a 4K in-body time-lapse, that all these frames that later on will make up a 4K file that ideally you just don't want to process at all or do any flicker reduction or any editing to, don't have an added vignetting sort of a flicker, because vignetting can cause a little bit of a flicker. So for time lapses, if you have the Z lenses, native Z lenses on a Z6 or a Z7, that's why I find this specific weird quirk that there are no profiles for Z lenses in Lightroom, because all the profiles are already saved and baked in to the files, to all the original RAW files, or the 4K files, just as I explained. That makes it a huge difference. And lastly, point 10, what timing with the midnight bells of St. Paul's. Point 10 is all about the fully automatic P mode when shooting time lapses. I don't know if there's actually a definitive list of cameras or bodies either from Nikon or other manufacturers that can do the P mode properly. I've actually dedicated 3 videos, one about the theory, how it works, second one about shooting a time lapse in P mode, and the third one how to edit that time lapse. And you can see the link to this playlist in that card. But the P mode, I sometimes just leave the camera in the in-body 4K time lapse from day to night to day, when I use 2 batteries using that battery pack that I mentioned earlier. And then I've actually shot more than 8 hours worth of time lapse in summer that would actually cover me for a sunset as well as a sunrise. And when it starts at sunset or finishes at sunrise, it's still a smooth motion because it uses the most closed aperture of f/16 and ISO 100, and the shutter becomes about 1/20th, 1/30th, still better than shooting at 1/1000th shutter. But then when it gets to the middle of the night, it goes wide open on the lens, either 1.8 or something, extends the length of the shutter to your maximum time, that be 10, 15, 20 or up to 30 seconds, and then only raises the ISO how much it needs to. It compiles actually quite a lot of the points that I've mentioned earlier, like 7, 8 and 9, into this last 10th point, being P mode being completely, fully automatic, smooth transition from sunset into night, into sunrise and daytime. That's why I absolutely love this camera. And the fact is that even before I got this camera, I didn't know about this feature. I sort of discovered it a few months into having this camera, and I absolutely loved it. If I'm not shooting RAW and I will just want a 4K file that I am somewhere that I want to post the next day straight away on socials, or edit and give to an editor that will do a daily edit, this is the mode that I would shoot a sunset to night to day transition time lapse. I said there's going to be 10 points, but I've actually got an 11th bonus point for you, and that is the price. New body, Z6 body, goes for $1,500 and you actually get the FTZ mount adapter. While if you go for a used one, eBay's around the place where you can find it in good condition for $1,100. And I mean, we're talking an absolute beast of a camera for £1,100 body only. Insanity actually that you get full frame, this quality, low light video performance at $1,100 for a used body. If you compare this to what other manufacturers have, A7 Mark III, much more expensive, don't do some of these time-lapse features, don't do raw recording or 10-bit ProRes into a Ninja V. There's the EOS R that has a flippy screen, yeah, sure, but otherwise has an insane crop in video mode and doesn't have some of the time-lapse features that the Canon RP has, but the sensor is like technology from a few years back, doesn't do well at all in low light. This is really the camera to get, and you can really trust me because I do own two Z6s and they were my choice to buy. Yes, I bought them at a discount from Nikon, but I really bought them and they are cameras that I use constantly. I absolutely love them. Thanks a lot for watching. Hopefully you find these 10 things that I love about my Z6s useful, and if you're looking for a full frame mirrorless camera, this should have made your choice much easier. But of course there are still rumors of the Z5, Z6S, Z7S. What I honestly think is that when these cameras get released, it will drive the price of a new Z6 further down, which will in turn actually drive the prices of used Z6s further down. And what this all will make, that this camera will actually be the best value for money camera. It is already the best value for money camera that you can get in 2020, full frame mirrorless. But very soon, as I'm filming this on the 16th of July, very soon, it seems at least like, the price will be driven further and it will be even better. So that's all I can tell you. Z6 is the camera to get in 2020. Thanks a lot guys for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. See you later guys. Oh, and while you're still here, I'm also going to be planning a video of 10 things I hate about the Nikon Z6. Well, obviously, I don't hate anything about the Z6 because I've got two. I made that decision because the positives overcame the negatives. But there are a few quirky things that I don't like about the Z6, and I would hope and aim that Nikon improves them in the Z5, Z6S, 7S, or the Z8 or Z9. But yeah, I've learned to overcome this. But for full disclosure, there are these things that I don't like about Nikon Z6, and that's why I'll be making that other video that I hope you will watch too. See you later guys. Now actually for real.